Okay, welcome back. We're looking at demo 12-1. This exercise is going to have you adding a table to the luncheons page that's in the Town Hall 3 folder. So you can see the example right here where you're going to, well, on the right it shows what it looks like currently. So you've got this big blank space down underneath the individual luncheon tickets. But we want to do what is shown here in the example by putting a table, which is the luncheon schedule, down here in this blank area. Okay, so first you want to look at this and say, all right, so I've got my aside over here with the guest speakers. I have my main area here where my section is, and that's where I want to place it. So when I go and look at the code, so what I did to find this is, again, I just right click and then choose View Page Source, and then it'll open up in another tab. So looking at this, I see that I've got my main section right here, main area, and then I've got my section, and then my aside. So I want to put the table starting in the section area right before the closing section tab right here on line 44. So I will just click after this P tag here, hit enter, and that's where I'm going to now build my table. Okay, so that just kind of gives you an idea of where you're going to be going with this. All right, so it says in number 1, open up the luncheons.html page. Then number 2, you're going to add the table. You're going to start the table by copying the HTML for one of the tables that's in the book. So if I open up our book and I look at the table, so we have here in figure 12.8 where it kind of gives you an outline here. So starting with the open and close table tags. So this kind of gives you you know, an outline here. You've got your table header section right here, then the table excuse me, the table body section right here, and then you've got your table footer. And so the TR is your table row, so the row going across. And then in this case, since you're working in the table head, you've got TH, so it's showing that the scope is column. So within the columns, each header is going to have book, then the year published, then the sales going across at the top of each column. It's important to put the scope in there because when you have folks who have certain disabilities, like they can't see, so the screen reader is reading it for them. They can visualize that these are the column headers and then the data is then going below it. So within the table body, we've got our TR or table rows. So in this case, there's 2 rows. TD stands for table data. So on row 1, which is right here, we've got 3 pieces of data. We've got the book, PHP and MySQL is underneath the book column. 2017 is underneath the year published, and then you've got the price, sales prices under sales. Okay, then you close that table row. The next table row has some more information underneath the book. It says JavaScript and jQuery. You've got the year 2017 and then the sales price there. Okay, and then down in your table footer, you have 1 row. And the data that's in there, well, first it has a table header, which says total sales, and then there's an open and close TD, table data tag, with nothing in there. That's to provide a space. And then you've got your total sales price. So that's kind of the gist of that. So you want to copy that and then put it into your HTML. Let's see, then you test it and make sure all the content is there, and then it's not going to be formatted right, but at least you'll have all your content in there. Okay, so then moving on, in the CSS, main.css file, you're going to copy CSS for one of the tables in the book also to get you started. And then you're going to modify it so that it looks like the one above. So in this example, you have where all of the borders and the text in the heading are using 8 and then followed by 5 zeros, which is kind of this reddish color here. And so you're going to want to give that a name, a class, because we've got it in multiple places. So it's going to be a class, not an ID, because that would be if you're using it one time. So you'll want to have a class. Okay, so let's see what that kind of looks like. I'm going to open up the CSS here. First, let's look at the luncheons before I do that. So here I've got my table with all the table rows. You'll notice too in the example that some of these span 2 rows. So like 2017, we've got 2 items, October 19th, Jeffrey Toobin, and November 16th, Andreas Ross Sorkin. So those span over 2 rows. So you can see here on line 57, we need to put in the row span equal 2. So that's kind of like if you were building out in a spreadsheet, you would merge those 2 rows together. Same thing down here for 2018 in the example. There's 4 rows there that it spans across. So starting with Amy Chua, right here, we want to have the row span 4. That's on line 68. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea of what's happening there. But back over to our CSS here. Let me move this back over so we can see it. Whoops. Okay, so it says you want to modify it so you're using that that reddish color right here. So our header 2, H2, it's the reddish color here. Font size is 175%. Down here in the shadow, text shadow, we'll use that. Again, the background color in the nav menu is the same. So it's that same color that we put in as the nav menu background before. All right, and then treat the table as a figure. So this is for accessibility purposes. So you want to enclose the table within a figure element and then code a fig caption element above the table, but within the figure element. Okay, so let's go back to our HTML and our table right here. We are going to enclose it with the figure tag. So it's on line 44 for the opening and all the way down to line 104 for the closing. It's wrapping around those table tags that we've created the table in. Just after the opening figure tag is where you want to put that fig caption. And that's where you want to put the title, the luncheon schedule. And then give it an ID, luncheon heading, for that H2, because it says to copy the H2 element that says the luncheon schedule into the fig caption element. So that's where you want to put that right in there. Okay, so then you're going to open up your developer tools, review the styles, and so forth. You're going to use figure 12.8 as a guide and add the attributes for user accessibility. Okay, and then you can also experiment with the CSS3 pseudo class to see if you can replace some of your class selectors with pseudo class selectors. So if you go back over to your CSS, we have some options here. If you scroll down, you can see some of the options that we have here to work with. So let's see back here. Here are the styles on 146 for the table. We've got our fig caption. We want that to be this red color. The border also the red color. The border underscore bottom, remember we set that as a class, so all of the borders will have the same color. And then if you wanted to kind of experiment, there is some code right here that you can use for the pseudo classes to work with that. But I'm not going to look for that so much, as I want to see that you can get the table in there and looking like the example. All right, and you're going to want to use this as a code example when you do your short and your shape up exercises. All right, thank you very much.